All right. We are live.
Oh boy.
Everybody, welcome to another episode of Everything to Gain, where usually it's the two of us, where Mark, Angelos, and I talk about making positive changes in your life, be it work life or personal. Thanks everyone for tuning in today. Mark actually is off this week. And so it is just me and our guest. If you have a question during the show, please put it into the chat and we will see it. We will also have a focused Q&A towards the end of the show. So today we have a very special guest, my good friend, John Lovig. John's been in the talent and recruiting industry for 15 years. He is an associate director in the product and design practice at TDA Creative.
Not as of yesterday. No longer there.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
As of yesterday?
Mm-hmm. So I'll be following my own career advice.
Awesome. That is, I mean, seriously, this is like the perfect timing. This is like a debutante ball. Like, look at you, like, coming out, and this is perfect. Yesterday? Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yep. I had my first interview this morning, though.
Look at this. Look at this. First interview already? How did you do that?
I'm a recruiter. I texted every recruiter I know.
That's awesome. Wow, look at that. Perfect example of networking leading right to an interview. So let's go back to your background here. John has a BA in psychology from UConn and a master's in industrial and organizational psychology from the University of New Haven. In his studies, John worked in labs dealing with everything from trauma, performance assessment, positive psychology, work trauma, human factors lab, which was really kind of like that's old school, like UXing type stuff, right? But I found that interesting because you kind of sort of, was brought up experimenting, breaking down the silos, right? And I think that's a good lesson for today, right? Breaking down the silos. But I'd love to hear from you, and I'm sure the audience would. How did your career progress over the years? I mean, we're all about making positive changes here at Everything to Gain.
Yeah. So, I know you love your transitions too, Dan. So I've had three main transitions through my career. 2009 was when I graduated. So as you can imagine, not exactly the time to be pursuing one's dreams so much as pursuing a way to pay your expensive grad school debt, which was like a mortgage. And so I had lucked out. I was one of the only classmates at the time to actually have a contract. I was at Yale University as a business analyst in our HR systems team. So I was responsible for managing our applicant tracking system. As one does when they're outgoing and like people, I built relationships with everyone in that 150 person HR org. And when my contract ended, I got a call from the head of staffing who said, "Come join my team." So I went and joined her team, started out in an admin role, really doing background checks, but then transitioned into recruiting. Now, I originally wanted to be this org development consultant, this, change management consultant, because I really loved organizational development, but found that I loved recruiting so much because what better development activity for an organization can there be than bringing on amazing talent who help shape and change an organization. So I ended up falling in love with it, and it had all the elements that I liked about organizational development embedded into a recruiting role. So that's what I did there. And then after about 5 years of recruiting in academia, where I covered, believe it or not, Yale's one of the largest employers for the state of Connecticut, 14,000 staff, I think it's over 4,000 contractors on their books. So once I left there, I went to another university. It wasn't as busy, so I didn't have as much to do, and made the decision to move to New York, which is how I stumbled into the world of staffing and recruiting, agency recruiting, I should say. And it was an exciting transition for me because I always thought that, as a lot of people do, that agency side recruiters were just, blood-sucking vampires, and didn't know that it could be a very humanistic approach. And so that's what happened. I joined staffing and haven't looked back since. It's been an amazing ride. I've been with a handful of different agencies, both as a leader and a individual contributor, and it's been really fun.
So you mentioned before that you were kind of helping your organizations with technology, right? And as we all know, that technology is taking much more of a place in recruiting. But I think that as technology continues to grow in recruiting and firms continue to push the limits, I think the audience, and the general public really doesn't understand the recruitment and hiring process, right? There's still a big human element to it. So what are some of the things that you've learned and seen, and actually you've managed teams before, that people should know about, and especially the difference between external and internal recruitment?
Yeah. I think for starters, internal and external recruiting is a little bit different. Typically, now this isn't a truism for everything. There are deviations, of course, depending on the structure of the org, and this tends to be more with bigger organizations, but typically, or I should say smaller organizations, typically internal recruiters have a broader set of roles that they recruit for, right? They tend to have, when I was internal, I recruited for everything in accounting, everything for finance, everything in IT, everything in human resources. I also worked within student services. That was 5 different areas. I had a rec load, rec being a job, a rec load anywhere from 25 to 40 positions at one time.
Wow.
And I was responsible for knowing every grants accountant within our database and who applied, so that I can match them with the different departments that might need that person. Whereas on the agency side, you tend to be a lot more specialized. I'm actually a freak a little bit because I'm a little bit more of a generalist than a lot of people are on the agency side. But when people look to me and say, oh, what do you know the best out of everything? I'm known for being a product management and product design recruiter through and through. Those are the 2 areas that I know better than most people. So that's what people tend to hire me for when I join an agency, but then I also work marketing roles and other things. The other thing to know is, agency recruiters are paid by the client. Hey, Melissa. Agency recruiters are paid by the client, but they still like candidates. They don't, granted, we can't place everybody that we work with, but most people are pretty generous with their time and are very willing to be helpful. The number of people I've coached with their portfolios and other things is pretty high, and we're very relationship driven that way.
Right. Right. And with every job, right, there's somebody that wins, right, and then everybody else is in second place, essentially, right?
That's the only downside to this job, is I hate telling people that they didn't get the job. That's the only thing I don't like.
Right. I hear that. And I've been the one that's delivered that message and also received that message too, and you have as well. And it's not the greatest feeling in the world, but it's reality.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
And so with some other companies, though, they will more specific internal recruiters, right?
Yeah.
And
so the larger the company, the more specialized they might get. Sometimes you'll even see recruiters, instead of being embedded in the HR function, they might even be more tied into ops or be directly partnered with their client group. So maybe someone is focused on software engineers, they'll be in the IT department. And usually some of those larger organizations, you look at a Google, for instance, when they have recruiters, they don't have recruiters to just find the best software engineers. They want to know the entire landscape, the entire market of software engineering. They would call that strategic sourcing, right? Okay. So it's more broad about identifying the pipelines and then knowing who's best. But they want to uncover every profile possible.
Right. And so when companies, there's obviously differences in internal recruiters at companies, right? And so there's definitely some of the job descriptions, right, that sometimes they're frustrating, right, to both external recruiters like us as well as the candidates, right? And so I find that the best job descriptions help everybody involved, external recruiter as well as the candidate, prepare for those interviews? And I'd like for you to touch on that a bit.
Yeah, so you're starting to see a trend with some of these more early stage companies where, in addition to some of the salary transparency laws that we're seeing, a lot of companies are starting to put their recruitment process down on paper in their job descriptions, right? They want to give you a realistic preview of what to expect. People want to understand what that process looks like. They want to know when they're going to hear back from you. You're creating a social contract. If you say in your canned email, "Thanks for applying, you'll hear from us in 48 hours," and you don't, then don't have that in your canned email, because it only makes people go, "Okay, sure." But yeah, I think between that, you look at most job descriptions, it's like umbrellas. Are there really an umbrella for every person, or are we just passing the same baton around? Yeah. It's like people copy job descriptions, they slightly reword it. It's like there's probably just 5 out there that everyone's copy pasting around. So that's what we would do. When I was internal, I would copy paste job description. Now we use ChatGPT all the time. I'm sure AI is writing most of our job descriptions these days.
So once you get past the job description, right, then the recruiters, right? So there's definitely differences in how recruiters will figure out which what looks good. And there's two distinct styles, and I think you would be a great person to talk about that.
Yeah. So what a lot of people don't realize is, and this could be recruiters, this could be hiring philosophies, this could be a hiring manager's approach, but there are the people who decide, I'm going to screen out people, and there are people who decide, I'm going to screen in. So if you think about a screen out person's like, let me speed up the process as fast as I can so that I can minimize as many people as I can quickly, right? That's what the people only spend 6 seconds on your resume. They're looking for any reason to screen someone out. Oh, typo, bye. This person didn't answer my question exactly how I wanted it to. I'm not going to follow up with them in the interview. Bye. That's a screen out person. And some companies adopt that philosophy. One misstep is it. And then there's the screen inners. I'm a screen inner. So I want to uncover the person's background and understand whether they're viable for the job. Right. And I think a lot of recruiters are they screen in. They're trying to find, can this person do this job? Is this person the right person for the job? Now, the screen in approach, what's great about it is you can uncover someone who's done something really interesting that maybe doesn't read that way on paper.
That's right.
Right? You got to make logical leaps of faith I'm not worried about wasting my time, right? I'm here to save people's time by wasting my time. And I'll talk to, maybe to my detriment, I'll talk to anybody. I don't care if you're even in my disciplines, but that's because maybe I'm just too generous with my time. Maybe I'm dumb, but that's my approach.
Well, that's giving, you give, right? And you don't count the points, right? Because, at the worst thing that's going to happen is that you meet somebody, right? You network a little bit, right? And that goes for all the parties involved, both the candidate and the recruiter, the hiring manager, whoever may be involved, which I would love to get to, that some people give recruiters a bad rap, but they're not the only people in the process.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and so there's all the different, people kind of like in the ecosystem, and we've dealt with all different types. Right. So, I'd love to hear the vested interests that you find.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, an internal recruiter and external recruiter definitely have different vested interests as well. Right. So an internal recruiter is trying to make the placement, but they're juggling a lot of different balls, and they're probably going towards the meanest hiring manager, right? Like the one who's yelling at them the most. That's the role that they're working the most. On the agency side, I wouldn't lie to you and tell you that we don't get paid to place people. We do have a vested interest in placing people because we make a percentage fee based on someone's salary. So we're usually interested in trying to place somebody as quickly as possible. But typically we want that person to be a really good fit, because, it doesn't make it to your paycheck if they don't work out. Yeah. And, some people have a higher threshold of how much that they're willing to do that for. I like when people stay there for years because I got to do that and made someone have a great career. But that's only one step of the process. You go to the hiring manager. What's the hiring manager's interest? The hiring manager is usually trying to resolve some kind of pain. And someone who I was coached by quite a few years ago now always used to say, listen, when someone's hiring, they're trying to do one of four things. They're trying to make money, save money, reduce their risk, or get an A+ on their report card, aka look good to their boss. So with a hiring manager, if you know that, what are the needles or the dials that you have to dial up in a conversation to say, hey, I make money or I reduce risk? And that's really, I always call it, what's the impact? What impact did you have? So that's the first party, right? And certainly they might be screening for culture, they might be screening for skill set, but at the end of the day, the hiring manager is trying to reduce some kind of pain within the organization or seize upon an opportunity that they might have. A peer or colleague, they're most likely trying to figure out, is this person someone who I could even drink a beer with? Because if I can't stand them, I don't want to work with them.
Your test, right?
That's a huge vested interest for them. But also, is this person going to be easy to work with, both from a personality standpoint, but also do they have the skill set so that I don't have to constantly be training them or helping them learn new things? Or, are they going to be able to hit the ground running because I don't want to have to deal with this? So that's one of their interests. Stakeholders within the organization, are they going to be collaborative? Do they follow similar processes? Can they plug into the way we do things, or are they rigid and singular minded? Those are some of the things that you got to be thinking about with every interview, so that you know how to tackle those conversations appropriately.
By the way, we just did a couple of messages here. Looks like people are still in the waiting room. It's weird. I mean, we're live here. So to the people who haven't been able to join, this will be recorded. It's recorded right now, and we'll have this up on YouTube later. But all right, so this is really, really helpful. I still think that people have some misconceptions, right, about recruiting, and I'd love for you to address some of those.
Yeah, there's a few big ones that I talk about a lot to people, and usually, if they're talking to me, one of them they get resolved because they're on the phone with someone like me, right? And but recruiters don't know what they're talking about. Is a huge one, right? And so I try to assuage people's fears with that by knowing as much about the company that I'm working for, about the role, about some of the goals that they have for that. And that's because I ask a lot of questions over hiring managers so I could be their best advocate. Same thing with that, recruiters don't care about the talent that they work with. I care way more than a lot of people would even think. And, if someone doesn't get the job, sometimes it really bums me out, we call this industry champagne and razor blades for a reason. And so sometimes it feels like we're just cutting ourselves. Sometimes it feels like we're toasting.
It should be on a shirt, right?
That's right. That's right. And then, the other thing is people really, Dan, I'm getting a lot of feedback from your side. It sounds like you're moving the mic or something.
Nope. Okay, keep going.
Anyway, a lot of people think AI plays a huge part in these applicant tracking systems. I have worked with almost every single applicant tracking system there is in the market, both as a functional owner of that system, so someone who has administrative access and can retool it however I want, as well as a user. And I will tell you right now, AI is not that advanced yet on the applicant tracking system side of things. There is not a bot ruling you out. If you think you hear a career coach say that, they've never seen the backside of an applicant tracking system. They're lying to you. They're lying to themselves. The most you will see there are a few things that you can configure within an ATS, unless there's some kind of AI thing that I don't know about, but I'm pretty well up on the recruitment technology. Unless if you're getting knocked out for a reason, there might be questions that are asked in the application that are no-go questions, right? Do you require visa sponsorship? That may trigger a decline if that role does not sponsor visas. Do you have X amount of years of experience in XYZ?
A special skill set.
That might be another thing. Sometimes those don't even automatically decline you. Sometimes they rank you, and then you end up at the lower ranks. Well, if there's someone who rules out people quickly, they can just quickly go, well, you didn't have a score of 5. Click, 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 decline. And so that's why sometimes you get these messages that feel like they're instantaneous and that AI was doing something. The other thing that AI does, and it does pretty poorly, so most recruiters ignore it, is a ranking system based on keywords within your resume, right? First of all, I had a time where there was a candidate way back when, and this has existed for years. So, back in 2009, when I first started recruiting, these things still ranked you. And I'm talking about a dinosaur ATS, no less. There was a candidate who he would apply to every job. And what he would do is he would take his resume and put in white a tiny little snippet of the entire job description, like this small, in white, so that he would show up in any keyword search or ranking. And I would see him constantly showing up high on the list. And then I would Control F, and all of a sudden I see it in this little tiny pixel. They banned him. They put a do not contact on his profile, and they never will. It's like
trying to game the system, right?
Trying to game the system.
It still goes back to authenticity, right?
Yeah.
Just being real. So
now, one more misconception, Dan, by the way, just really important. A lot of people come to me and say, "Hey, John, why should I apply to this role? There's a ton of applicants."
That's another one. Yeah, that's right.
Right. So if you look at LinkedIn, there are 2 ways to apply on LinkedIn. There's Easy Apply, and this is set up by the company, not by you. Right. There's Easy Apply, and there's Apply. Easy Apply is where it will likely either go into a LinkedIn project or send an email to the recruiter. Easy Apply, those numbers of applications is accurate because it's that easy to apply, and it only counts it if it's a complete application.
Yep.
And so that number is accurate. However, and because of it, you probably will have a high application pool. Most job applicants, if you look at any project, at best, if you're lucky, most of them, I would say 10% is even remotely qualified, like even meets the minimum qualifications of the job spec. So, and I've had searches where it's been less than 1%. Met the job specs. So, don't let that number fool you. Yeah. Now, if you click on apply, that redirects you to the company's job board. And so
within the company website, which is linked to the ATS.
Yes. And so that number is reflective of the click-through rate only. Now, with a applicant tracking system, traditionally, the application process, depending on how complex, depending on some of the stages, you have anywhere from 30 to 40% drop off where people don't complete the application. So you're already diminishing, say it's 500 people. You're almost having it down now. And then only 10% of that pool is even remotely qualified.
Right. So don't be frustrated with what seems like a headline number, right? But it's kind of not real.
Yeah.
Right. And so in summary, though, like the difference between easy apply and apply, there's a difference in how you interact as an potential applicant, right? But then there's a difference between how the recruiters interact, right? And so this is so helpful, and I hope everybody rewatches this segment of this, because it's so helpful to understand what goes on in the back part, kind of behind the scenes of the technology, and how it's going to drive your recruiting experience.
Yeah, like for instance, we love that easy apply because it's so easy, but what you're not thinking about is there's a very strong chance your application stays in LinkedIn and never makes it to the company applicant tracking system. So you're not searchable for the company again within their ATS, and you kind of want to be there. A lot of companies start there for their search. Who do we have in our network already? And so you want to be in that end zone. So I always recommend, if you could easy apply on LinkedIn, but then I would also apply on their website.
So you recommend actually going to both?
Why not?
Both, right? Why not? Right. So that's something that I think. And
you'll stand out because the other people just easy applied.
That's right. But I don't think people really understand that. They think, oh, I've applied to the company. No, actually, easy apply just only stays in LinkedIn, and I think that's a big misconception of how that works. So this is really, really great, really helpful. And so once you get a call back, right, going to that interview, right? So just briefly, I know that we're running up on our time, but I want to get to Q&A as well. What are some of the strategies for interviewing?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of starts with being prepared. The amount of people I have had, despite me telling them otherwise. For instance, I had a client who has a free sign up for their platform. The number of people who haven't signed up to look at the platform before going into an interview. Now, these are product managers. So
product managers not signing up?
Yeah. Like, don't you want to know where you're getting into first and foremost? Second of all, and I'm sorry if any of you are watching this, but why wouldn't you sign up for free?
Sign up for free.
Like, it shows enthusiasm and interest. It shows that that you're engaged in the process, and it gives you something you can ask about. Hey, why did you include this button or feature here? You can really kind of show off and say, I already did a little mini analysis. What drove you to do this, right? You can have more of a conversation around it and highlight your product thinking.
If you're a product manager, you're going to be interviewing with another product manager. Right? I mean, sign up for the product.
Well, and this particular one was responsible for user-facing features.
Wow.
So obviously prepare, ask questions.
Amazing.
And I think the main thing is go through, and Dan and I are obsessed with the same kind of interview technique. We're not going to dive into this today, but have an interview. What's that, Dan? Don't use the interview technique, prepare with it. I always say you're not going into an interview with a script. You're going into an interview with a tool belt, and you can pull the stories up that make the most sense based on how the conversation's going. But you have to have enough of those prepared in your mind. And at the end of the day, they have to articulate an impact. How did you make a positive change? And it goes back to, how did you make the money, save the money, reduce risk, make the boss look good? And you have to try and quantify that.
How did you think about it? Right?
What was the journey to get there?
What was the journey? That's right.
What data did you use to drive your decision making? A lot of people don't talk about those things, and stories fall flat that way.
Yeah.
So that's what you want to be doing, and thinking about who that stakeholder is. If it's the colleague, then you want to highlight collaborative experiences. How you worked within a certain process. If it's a stakeholder, how did you resolve some of their pain points?
So one of the other things is having good energy. Good energy going into a meeting.
Oh my God!
I had this interview yesterday, right? Candidate. So I'm external recruiter. I had this interview yesterday. This person was just, whatever, like sorry, but it doesn't seem like you really want to have this
Like you
conversation.
just want to be like, you want to
Yeah.
exit out any way you can, right? Oops,
Like-
my internet crashed.
Like, but yeah, do you really want to have? Are you interested in making a change here? Like, oh yes, no, I'm really well. If you're really interested in making a change, have a little enthusiasm. So, because I'm going to be your advocate with the client.
I've never done our candidate write-up that said, hey, they're amazing, but conversationally, a complete wet noodle.
Yeah, right. Like, I'm not going to present you if you're going to be a wet noodle, right? I mean, so anyway, this is us calling it like we see it, right? And I'm going to call, I'm going to call the, like I said with you, like you're still experimenting, you're still getting it, and now you through your own network, you've done interviews already. So what else is next for you?
I mean, right now I've already set up there's this amazing tool called Teal. That's sort of like it's sort of like a process. Or how would I describe it? It's sort of like an ATS for a candidate. You keep track of your job applications. It helps you customize your cover letters and your resume. So I already started building that out, and allows you to add contacts. I'm going to use some of the technology that I use as a recruiter to create campaigns to hire me. And actually, I'm working on a course with you, Dan, around finding a job like a recruiter would. So
Yep.
we'll be talking about some of those things that I've been doing in this job search in order to be successful. My last job search lasted 3 weeks, 26 interviews.
26
first interviews.
rounds? 26 first rounds?
No, probably 14 first rounds.
14 first rounds in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, right? Then you got the job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all still networking, right? It's all still getting out there, being present, being out there, putting yourself out there for the world to see, right? So
yeah, it's a journey. I wish my dating life were this easy, but that's also a pretty good acquisition funnel too.
Well, there you have it, folks. I mean, John's a perfect example of someone who's been been in that job search recently, or a few years ago, right? And you had the 14 first round interviews, and then closed in 3 weeks. Closed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in the seat 4 weeks after.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so educational, for the audience. We're going to talk more offline about our course, but what we're going to be looking at doing something together. I'd like to open it up to the audience for Q&A. If you have any questions, please put it into the chat, and hopefully we will see it right here on our UI here. For those of you who joined late, looks like we had a little problem with LinkedIn for some reason. This episode is recorded, so it will be on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube, it's E2G Show. That's for everything to gain, E2G Show. We are also live on Instagram under my handle, Dan OU, and on Twitch under E2G Show. But it is recorded, so you can go to our YouTube channel. Please follow, like and subscribe, as they say in that world. Any questions from the audience? Please engage with John. You have a captive audience, truly captive. Since I
have nothing better to do.
So actually, I have a couple questions for you. I have a couple questions. So where do you see where do you see the job growth? Like growth industries. Where do you see that?
Yeah. Right, right now, one thing to look at, and I think I told you this the other day, Dan, even, and I tell a lot of people this just because it's interesting to me. It might not be interesting to anyone else. But if you look at, I always look to see where hiring is going to happen based on what type of recruiters are being hired. And right now, there are a lot of go-to-market recruiter hires happening. For those who don't know what a go-to-market recruiter is, it's someone who is focused on sales, account management, pretty much anything to take a product to market and sell it. So that could include product marketing, frequently does.
Right.
Sometimes includes product management.
Yeah.
But usually when you're hiring go-to-market, I would expect that to be around an existing product where they're trying to just sell it more. So it's a good area to be in right now. Sales is probably going to start to boom quite a bit. I think we'll probably see in the second half of the year more product and product design hires, although I'm starting to see that happen now. Marketing's starting to creep up a little bit. I bet Melissa's seeing that too. And that's where I'm mostly seeing things. Obviously, I don't recruit in every market. It seems like finance and accounting has been strong. Biotech has been strong, and healthcare will always remain, I think, pretty strong in terms of the recruiting space. Pharma is doing well as well.
Great. Yeah. So if there's no questions from the audience, John, I want to thank you so much for your time, being a guest here, and everything to gain, your knowledge that you've shared with the audience. John Lovig, you can easily search John, if you want to follow him on LinkedIn and the content that he creates. Thank you to the audience for joining this episode of Everything to Gain. Mark and I will be on hiatus for 2 weeks. We're both going on a holiday, kind of back to back, but we'll be back in a couple weeks with episode 5. Again, keep an eye out on LinkedIn, Twitch at E2G Show, and on Instagram Live at DanOU. So that's right there, DanOU. So again, John, thank you so much. This has been
Thanks for having me.
This is great, great time. And to the audience, we'll see you next time. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.